The Psychology of Successful People, Carl Jung explained. What if success isn't just about hustle, habits, or external achievements? What if real success begins within, in the hidden depths of your psyche? Carl Jung, one of the most profound thinkers of the 20th century, believed that true success isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming who you truly are. In this video, we'll uncover the inner journey of successful people through the lens of Jungian psychology. We'll explore how shadow work, individuation, self-awareness, and imagination are not just spiritual ideas, but the psychological roots of meaningful, authentic success. Because success without self-knowledge is empty. But when you align your outer goals with your inner truth, you don't just rise, you evolve. Let's begin. What is true success? Carl Jung's definition versus society's illusion. In today's world, success is often painted in bold external colors: money, status, power, likes, and luxury. We're told that if we just work hard enough, climb high enough, or impress enough people, we'll finally make it. But what happens when you get there and still feel empty inside? Carl Jung offered a radically different vision. To him, true success had nothing to do with fame or fortune, and everything to do with becoming your true self. He called this process individuation, the deep psychological journey of integrating your conscious personality with the vast hidden parts of your unconscious mind. Not chasing perfection, not imitating others, but peeling back the layers until you remember who you really are, beneath conditioning, wounds, and fear. Jung believed that many people are successful in the eyes of the world, but failures in the eyes of their own soul. Because without self-knowledge, even the greatest accomplishments ring hollow. True success, in Jungian terms, is inner alignment. Not having it all, but being whole. And for that, you don't need applause. You need courage to walk inward. The power of self-awareness, know thyself. First, Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is not just a profound psychological insight. It's a map to success few dare to follow. Because real success begins not with goals or ambition, but with one powerful truth: self-awareness. The ability to look inward, honestly, without flinching, is what separates fleeting achievement from lasting transformation. So many people chase success without ever asking why. Why do I want this title? Why do I fear failure? Why do I sabotage myself just when I'm about to win? Jung believed that every person is a mystery. To others, yes, but especially to themselves. We are full of blind spots, unconscious motives, inherited beliefs, and shadow desires we've never dared to examine. And unless we slow down to see those patterns clearly, we stay trapped in cycles that feel like fate. Truly successful people, the ones who radiate meaning and clarity, have something in common. They reflect. They observe their thoughts, their reactions, their dreams. They ask deeper questions. What am I running from? What am I longing for? What truth am I avoiding? This inner work isn't passive, it's courageous. And Jung offered practical tools to begin. Journaling, for one, is not just writing down your day. It's a dialogue with your inner world. When you write honestly, especially when you're confused, afraid, or lost, you begin to see patterns. You begin to hear the quiet voice underneath the noise. Sometimes that voice belongs to your shadow, sometimes to your inner child, but always it's guiding you closer to wholeness. Dream work is another powerful path. Jung believed dreams are messages from the unconscious, not random, but purposeful. A strange figure, a repeated symbol, a vivid emotion. These are all clues. They're your psyche trying to speak to you in a language older than words. Recording your dreams, even fragments, and reflecting on their meaning is a way of listening to the self. Over time, you begin to notice recurring themes, unresolved wounds, and hidden desires. It's not always comfortable, but it is always revealing. And then there's introspection, the simple, sacred act of pausing, sitting with your thoughts, watching your emotions, not judging them, just witnessing. Over time, this kind of mindful awareness creates inner space, and from that space, wise decisions are born. Because the truth is, you can't master your life until you begin to know your own mind. The most successful people aren't those with the busiest calendars, but those who make time to reflect, to learn, to evolve. So before you chase another milestone, ask yourself, do I know who's doing the chasing? Self-awareness isn't a luxury, it's the foundation of everything. Shadow work. Why real success requires facing your darkness. Carl Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This is where most success stories fall apart. Not because people aren't talented or hardworking, but because they refuse to confront the one thing that holds them back: their shadow. The shadow is the part of you you've rejected, buried, or denied. It's the anger you suppress, the envy you pretend you don't feel, the fear you numb with distractions. It's the shame you avoid and the truths you silence. But it's still there, underneath the surface, shaping your life in secret. Jung taught that unless you face your shadow, it will sabotage you. That sudden burst of self-doubt before a big opportunity. That impulse to lash out when someone threatens your ego. That pattern of relationships that end the same painful way. That's not bad luck. That's the shadow at work. It's the part of you that whispers, "You're not good enough." Or worse, if they really knew you, they'd leave. And yet here's the paradox. Your shadow is not your enemy. In fact, it holds the very power you need to succeed. Because hidden inside your shadow is raw energy, the fire of repressed emotions, untapped creativity, and unclaimed authenticity. When denied, this energy turns destructive. But when faced, understood, and integrated, it becomes a source of power. Think of the successful artist who once struggled with deep shame, but now channels it into truth-telling stories. Or the leader who once feared confrontation, but now sets boundaries with clarity and calm. Or the entrepreneur who transformed childhood anger into focused drive and discipline. That's the magic of shadow work. It's not about getting rid of the darkness, it's about reclaiming it. Not all darkness is evil. Some of it is depth, some of it is your soul, waiting to be seen, not judged. Jung believed that we must own our shadow to become whole, to look at the parts we fear, not with shame, but with curiosity. To say, yes, this too is me, and I am still worthy. This level of self-acceptance is rare and powerful, because when you no longer run from yourself, you stop running from life. You speak more honestly, you act with integrity, you stop performing for approval, and that changes everything. True success isn't just about climbing ladders, it's about knowing who's climbing. It's about being so rooted in your inner truth that no failure can break you, and no success can seduce you into self-betrayal. So ask yourself, what have I disowned? What part of me am I afraid to face? That is where your shadow lives, and that is where your power begins. Real success is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming whole. Archetypes of the successful soul, hero, creator, sage Carl Jung, believed that deep within every human being are ancient blueprints, patterns of behavior, emotion, and potential that shape how we live and grow. He called them archetypes, timeless energies of the soul, found in myths, dreams, stories, and most importantly, in you. Behind every truly successful person is not just strategy or talent, but the awakening of an inner archetype that guides them forward with purpose. Take the hero, perhaps the most well-known. The hero archetype is about courage, perseverance, and the willingness to endure trials for something greater. It's the startup founder who risks everything to build a vision, the athlete who keeps training after every injury, the activist who refuses to back down in the face of injustice. When you awaken your inner hero, you stop waiting for things to be easy and start rising to meet the challenge. But not all success comes from battle. There is also the creator, the one who builds, imagines, and gives birth to something new. This archetype shows up in the artist, the innovator, the entrepreneur, the one who sees possibilities where others see limits. The creator lives in those who dare to follow inspiration, even when it makes no sense on paper. It whispers, make beauty, make truth, make something that matters. And then there is the sage, the seeker of wisdom. The sage values knowledge, inner truth, and the bigger picture. This archetype shows up in leaders who stay calm under pressure, in mentors who guide without ego, and in visionaries who think not just about profit, but legacy. The sage doesn't chase the spotlight, but its clarity often becomes the light others follow. These archetypes are not fantasies. They are inner realities, patterns waiting to be lived. The problem is, most people don't know which archetype drives them. They chase someone else's definition of success and wonder why they feel lost or drained. But when you recognize your dominant archetype, you gain direction. You understand why you're drawn to certain challenges, why you struggle in certain areas, and what kind of success will actually fulfill you. And here's the truth. You don't have just one archetype. You carry many, and each one may emerge at different stages of your life. Sometimes you'll need the hero to act with courage. Other times, the creator to build what's never been done. And when the noise gets too loud, the sage to return you to inner wisdom. Real success isn't about forcing yourself into a mold. It's about aligning with the archetype your soul is calling forth right now. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And these archetypes, the hero, the creator, the sage, are not outside of you. They are who you already are, beneath the noise. Awaken them, and your path will begin to reveal itself. Ego versus soul, the dangerous trap of false success. Not all success is created equal. Some forms of success shine on the outside but rot you from within. Carl Jung warned us, when the ego drives the journey instead of the soul, we end up chasing illusions. We win, but lose ourselves. This is the dangerous trap of false success. Ego-driven success is loud. It needs recognition, applause, and proof. It wants to be the best, not because the mission matters, but because the emptiness underneath is unbearable. It's the executive who climbs the ladder only to find there's nothing at the top. The influencer addicted to validation, but haunted by loneliness. The millionaire who can't sleep at night because he doesn't know who he really is. The ego's version of success is about control, comparison, and image. But the soul whispers a different story. Soul-centered success is quiet. It's not desperate to be seen because it already knows its worth. It's not afraid to start small, to walk slowly, to choose meaning over metrics. The soul wants depth, not drama. Purpose, not performance. When your ego drives your ambition, you may achieve great things, but at great cost. Burnout, broken relationships, a chronic sense of not enough, because the ego feeds on external proof, and that proof is always fleeting. There's always someone more successful, more admired, more ahead. But the soul is eternal. It doesn't compare, it aligns, it doesn't hustle, it harmonizes. Jung believed that much of our suffering comes from identifying with a false self, a mask we wear to fit the world's expectations. And often our so-called success is just that, a mask, a role, an armor we put on to hide how lost we really feel. But the soul doesn't want a role, it wants reality. It wants to create, to love, to serve, not from a need to prove, but from a need to express who we truly are. When success is soul-driven, it feels different. Even when it's hard, it's meaningful. Even when it's slow, it's steady. It nourishes you, instead of draining you. Ask yourself, is the life I'm building feeding my soul or feeding my ego? Am I becoming more myself, or a stranger to my own heart? The answer to that question will tell you everything. Jung taught that the goal of life is individuation, becoming whole. That means facing your ego, honoring your soul, and building a life that reflects your truth, not just your ambition. Because in the end, real success isn't measured by numbers, titles, or trophies. It's measured by how deeply you lived, how authentically you showed up, and how aligned you became with the sacred essence of who you are. That's not just success. That's fulfillment. That's freedom. Synchronicity, the hidden order behind luck and timing. Have you ever had a moment that felt like more than coincidence? A chance meeting that changed your path? A book that landed in your lap at the exact moment you needed it? An idea that arrived out of nowhere, just before the breakthrough? Carl Jung called these moments synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that are not random, but aligned. Jung believed that when we are living authentically, when we are in tune with our soul's path, the outer world begins to echo our inner world. Events line up, doors open, people show up. It's not magic, It's not superstition. It's the hidden order beneath the surface of life. Synchronicity is the universe whispering, yes, you're on the right track. And successful people, the truly aligned ones, often speak of these moments, not as luck, but as guidance. Steve Jobs once said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward." When he dropped out of college, it felt like failure. But years later, he took a random calligraphy course, and that single experience shaped the aesthetic philosophy of Apple. A coincidence? Maybe. But in Jung's language, it was a synchronistic event tied to a deeper purpose. Or consider Oprah Winfrey. She often speaks about her life's turning points being guided by something greater. A quiet voice inside, paired with external signs. When she auditioned for The Color Purple, she wasn't even an actress. But she felt it was destined. And it was. Synchronicity doesn't guarantee ease, but it brings alignment. The key to experiencing synchronicity is inner attunement. When you begin to live from your soul, not your ego, your intuition becomes sharper. You notice patterns others miss. You sense opportunities before they arrive. You feel a deeper rhythm guiding your steps. That's not superstition. That's psychological alignment. Jung believed that synchronicities are signs that the unconscious and the world are in dialogue, that we are not isolated machines in a meaningless universe, but participants in something profoundly interconnected. So how do you open yourself to synchronicity? Start by slowing down. Pay attention to what feels emotionally charged, the moments, dreams, or symbols that glow. Listen to your gut, not just your logic. Keep a journal, track dreams, reflect on repeating patterns. The more you live in integrity with your deeper truth, the more life begins to mirror it back. Because in the end, successful people don't just make things happen. They also know when to surrender, when to trust that something larger is unfolding. They ride the current rather than fight the river. And in doing so, they often find themselves in the right place, at the right time, meeting the right people. Not by accident, but by inner alignment. That's the power of synchronicity. And once you see it, you can never unsee it again. The inner marriage, balancing masculine and feminine energies. True mastery begins not in the outer world, but in the harmony of your inner world. Carl Jung called it the inner marriage, the sacred union between two archetypal energies within every human being, the masculine and the feminine. He named these inner figures the animus and the anima. The animus, the inner masculine, logic, clarity, structure, strength. The anima, the inner feminine, intuition, emotion, creativity, and flow. These aren't about gender, they're about psychic energy, about how we think, feel, act, and imagine. In most people, one dominates. We're either too rigid, always planning, pushing, and controlling. Or we're too passive, lost in emotion, intuition, and indecision. But Jung believed that true wholeness and true success comes when these forces meet. When the sword meets the cup, when vision meets vulnerability, when we are both focused and flexible, driven and reflective. Look closely at the lives of truly successful people, not just those who achieve, but those who create lasting soulful impact, and you will see this harmony. Think of someone like Martin Luther King Jr. His message was fiercely logical and strategic, the animus, but his words were also drenched in emotion, empathy, and divine imagination, the anima. Or take someone like Maya Angelou. She channeled deep emotional wisdom and poetic vision, yet she also stood firm, clear, and intellectually commanding. These are examples of people who married their inner opposites. Because when you bring your masculine and feminine energies into conscious relationship, something awakens. A new level of intelligence, a deeper intuition, an ability to act with heart and feel with strength. But most people are at war within. They repress one side, often due to cultural conditioning. Men suppress emotion, softness, and sensitivity. Women may suppress assertiveness, boundaries, or clarity. And so we become incomplete, half alive, pushing outward but collapsing inward. Jung saw the path of individuation, the journey to becoming your whole self, as a kind of alchemical marriage, a uniting of sun and moon, of discipline and surrender, of fire and water. So how do you begin this inner union? First, notice the imbalance. Do you over-identify with doing, logic, control, the masculine? Or are you lost in emotion, fantasy, indecision, the feminine? Second, befriend the opposite within you. If you are overly rational, begin journaling, meditating, or listening to dreams. If you are overly emotional, cultivate structure, decision-making, and boundaries. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more fully yourself. Because the most successful people are not the most aggressive or the most sensitive. They are the ones who have integrated their inner world. They don't just conquer, they create. They don't just hustle, they heal. That is the inner marriage. And in Jungian psychology, it's not a luxury. It's the path to greatness. Not outward domination, but inner union. Emotional alchemy, turning pain into power. What if your greatest pain is your greatest power waiting to awaken? Carl Jung believed that every wound contains a gift. That within every trauma, every heartbreak, every moment of despair, lies a spark of transformation. This is emotional alchemy, the sacred process of turning suffering into strength and wounds into wisdom. High achievers, the truly impactful ones, do not succeed in spite of their pain. They succeed through it. They walk into the fire of their past and come out not burned, but forged. Jung called this work meeting the shadow, going inward to confront the repressed emotions, unresolved trauma, and forgotten memories we carry like ghosts in our nervous system. And at the heart of this shadow is often the inner child, the part of us that still flinches from old rejection, abandonment, shame, or fear. It's that soft, vulnerable place that never got to speak, never got to cry, scream, or be fully seen. But when you begin to listen, to comfort, to reparent this child within, something miraculous happens. You begin to reclaim your energy, because trauma, when left unhealed, becomes a weight. But trauma, when alchemized, becomes fuel. Just look at the lives of great creators, leaders, and visionaries. Oprah Winfrey turned childhood abuse into a global mission of empathy. Viktor Frankl turned the horrors of Auschwitz into a philosophy of meaning. Frida Kahlo transformed chronic pain into haunting, eternal art. These weren't perfect people. They were scarred, wounded, human. But they were willing to feel everything and create anyway. That is the core of emotional alchemy. You don't bypass your pain. You listen to it. You dialogue with it. And then you transform it. This process takes courage. It may require therapy, shadow work, journaling, or deep introspection. It may involve crying over what you thought you had buried. It may feel like breaking before it feels like healing. But the paradox is this: the deeper you go into your wounds, the more whole you become. Because pain strips away illusion. It cracks the ego. And in that space of rawness, something real, something creative, something resilient is born. Jung taught that the self, the deepest part of you, is always trying to emerge. And sometimes the only way it can break through is when your false self breaks down. So if you've suffered, if you carry emotional scars, inner turmoil, or haunted memories, don't push them away. These are not signs of weakness. They are initiations. Your pain is not your prison, it is your portal. And on the other side of it is your power. The guide within, tapping into the inner wise, one inside each of us, lives a guide. Carl Jung called it the wise old man, or the wise woman, an archetype of deep inner knowing that exists beyond the noise of the ego. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand. It whispers. And truly successful people, the grounded, visionary kind, learn how to listen. This isn't about external mentors, although those are important. This is about developing a relationship with your own inner compass. Individuation, the real goal of life and success. What if success isn't about climbing higher? Going deeper. Carl Jung called it individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are, not who your parents wanted, not what society expects, but you, whole, real, and integrated. Individuation isn't glamorous. It's not always visible from the outside, but it's the most authentic, powerful path you can walk. This journey means embracing your light and your shadow. It may because in moments of confusion, failure, heartbreak, or doubt, What saves you isn't more data, more hustle, or more advice. It's intuition. It's that quiet voice inside that says wait, or go, or trust this. This is the voice of the self. Jung believed that tapping into this inner wisdom requires certain conditions: stillness, solitude, reflection. It's why so many successful people carve out time to be alone, to meditate, to journal, to walk without a destination. These practices aren't luxuries. They are how the inner world speaks. Meditation clears the clutter. Dream work opens the gates of the unconscious. Solitude strengthens inner clarity. And ritual, whatever form it takes, opens the door to the sacred within. You might meet this inner guide in a dream, as a symbol, a voice, or even a person. You might feel it as a sensation in your body, a calm center in the storm. And the more you consult this inner figure, the more you realize you are never truly alone. Your psyche is not empty, it is alive. The guide within isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it tells you truths you'd rather not hear. Sometimes it asks you to let go of control, but it always leads you toward wholeness. So take time to listen. Create space in your day, even 5 minutes, to breathe and go inward. Ask questions. Wait for the reply. And when that quiet clarity arrives, honor it. Because your greatest ally in success was within you all along.